What's going on? It's Jeremy Hecht. I'm with Nico Blitz. This is the Nico Blitz Podcast. We're about to have what should be an incredible conversation. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you have a great day after you listen to this, and I hope the rest of your week, month, year, everything besides this moment is just as incredible. Let's get into it.
Oh my God, is that Nico Blitz?
All right, everybody, welcome back. Nico Blitz Podcast. You already know, I don't know what episode this is, but we're somewhere in the teens right now. Shout out to my next guest, Jeremy Hecht.
Man, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be a part of the journey in whatever way.
Bro, I'm so happy to have you. And simply because, I think we found each other because we went to that XV concert a couple years ago.
Yeah. Which is, and I was actually thinking about this, and the thought keeps popping in my mind, but it's like culminating right now in terms of like, you never know what your connections or an event you go to or a thought you have or something you post online. You never know what anything really means in the moment, but you always can sense when it means something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that night, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't think my interview with XV was going to go viral. Shout out to him. I didn't even think he was like 3 hours late or something.
Yeah.
I didn't even know if I was going to get it. But there felt like a special energy that day. And same with our connection where we were kind of on like parallel paths in the sense of like I was like interning for Power. You were working for 92.
Real 92.3, yeah.
And we were kind of both like carving our own interview lanes and like figuring out what we want to do in media. And we kept like kind of running into each other at different moments. So when we ran into each other like recently, it was like, okay.
Yeah, I think we ran into each other at Twee's concert a couple of weeks ago too. And then literally it was that moment I was like, it'd be dope to get Jeremy on the podcast because, bro, like legitimately there aren't many people who interview artists the way you do. And, I could just go through your Instagram like reels, right? Like, bro, like you'll ask questions where people are just like, damn, like you did your research. Like, damn, like I didn't even think about that. Like, damn, I forgot about that. So, to me, I'm just like, man, like this guy really is on top of his shit. He knows what he's doing. And coming from somebody, I feel like we're kind of like in the same, obviously doing like different things, but also in the same lane. Like, it's very inspiring to see somebody like yourself just do what you do, bro. And, that's what we all about here on the podcast, man.
Man, you inspire me too, so I appreciate it. And I'm excited to see us continue to build, not just us, but like our group of peers, like continue to build and like take over the next step, while showing love to, I think we both are people who have like learned and been mentored by people, who have been great in this space and had the blessing to be under that, scope. So to be able to kind of take what we've learned and carve our own lane and make our own way in the industry is inspiring. But yeah, I appreciate that. I think my goal, I've always said, I don't necessarily want to be Nardwar in the sense where you're like, because shout out to the GOAT Nardwar. I'm not calling anybody's cousins. I'm not calling schools. You know what I mean? I will never say anything to an artist where they're like, wait,
how the fuck did you know that?
Like I never said that out loud.
Yeah.
My goal is to find things that they're thinking about. They're like, oh, I definitely did say that somewhere at some point in time, or that is true. But like, okay, you put in the work to find it, which must have taken hours at some point.
Yeah.
So from there, I also want to get what's the real story behind it. Like there's this little like for example, the first piece of my content that ever went really, really viral was when I asked The Game, and I just asked him, it was curious, it was just a curiosity question, but he had mentioned this in one interview in 2010, and I interviewed him in 2019, I believe, or 2020. So one time in 2010, he said in a print interview, Michael Jackson called me and tried to squash the beef between me and 50 Cent. That's all he said in that interview. No one asked him about it for 10 straight years. So I'm not picking up new information. It was said somewhere. But my goal is like, all right, there's got to be more to that.
Yeah.
Like, what is the actual story? So when I asked him, it came from me being curious as a fan and being like, I remember hearing that song and you said it in this verse. You said like, it was a tribute to Michael Jackson. I remember him saying, Michael called me and tried to squash and whatever. And he said in an interview, what was that conversation like? That's all it is. And then him doing the Michael Jackson impression and people thinking it was 50 Cent prank calling him helped. But that's the goal, is like to, inspire, like Virgil said, I'm trying to inspire, like, because you probably feel the same. sometimes it's easy to get jaded, right?
Yes,
like you've probably been in rooms or done shit that now is a regular Tuesday to you.
Yeah.
But before it was like you would have died or like done anything.
You would have done anything just to get in that room. Now you're in the room like pretty easily.
Sometimes you say no. You're like, dude, now I bet you've said no to shit that you would have done anything for.
Yeah, now I'm just like, I'm going to stay my ass at home. I'm going to do this Netflix shit for a bit.
I try. What keeps me humble enough not to get jaded with that, because I do appreciate, like, saying no to things is still the most powerful thing that I've had in my career now. But
it is.
But what keeps me not jaded is the kid who doesn't know all the behind the scenes stuff, the kid who's just there looking for their favorite artist to inspire them and hear their story and think that they can do it too. How can I help that kid or give them information or give them inspiration or tell them something about life through, me being a vessel to get that information out of somebody? So that's kind of what keeps me going at this point.
Yeah, because I feel like, even going back to the Michael Jackson game situation, what I learned as a journalist, because I went to Cal State LA, went for journalism school and all that, is that like the follow-up questions are the most powerful thing that you can do when it comes to journalism. And I feel like not a lot of people are digging that much deeper. Like you just get the little headline like, oh, the game talking about Michael Jackson tried to squash beef. It's like, bro, like there's so much more in that conversation. It's like, well, how long did the conversation last? Like, was it a 5-second conversation? Was it like a 10-minute conversation? And if it was, what was the context of that conversation?
Yeah, literally like things as small. And like, I always say like, it's so simple. Like shout out to Jay Cruz, who was a mentor of mine and he gave me my first shot.
Yeah.
And one of the things he told me early on was just like, don't overlook the why, just like, even if you aren't sure exactly what to follow up with, like, there's usually something deeper. Why? Why did you say that? Why did you wait? Why did you not want to do the song with 50 after Michael said it? Like those little things. And so now I kind of put it down to the basics of like, in the follow-up moment, if you think there's more to the story and you're not sure how to get it out of them and you're not sure how to word it, all you have to go to is your basics, like what you learn in elementary school, okay? So for this example, I'm serious. This example, Game says, so then Michael Jackson called me, right? And let's say let's say you're doing this interview as like an upcoming journalist, someone who's like not sure what to ask after that. Okay, who were you around at that time? Did anyone else hear that conversation? What time of day was it? How did he get your number? Why did you decide to answer that call? Do you pick up every time a random number calls? Like the little things that just extend the convo so that when they'll give you more information and then you can pinpoint, okay, I know where I'm going next with this,
Yeah. It's just a little simple shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think what sucks about nowadays is that we're trying to, well, not we, but like a lot of people are trying to get to the most clickbait shit as quick as possible. So it's like, okay, what's the most headline question that I could ask right now that I can post on social media right now that's going to get viral? But I don't think people are also thinking that, like, even if you do get viral off of that one thing, right?
What's nice?
It's like, what's the point? Because you might be sacrificing that relationship with that person because all you went for was some headline shit. When, in fact, you didn't even realize that was going to be something that was going to be some headline shit for you.
Yeah, and I'm cautious with that. What people, I think, overlook is all of the steps it takes to get a moment like that. And not even just the gay moment. Like, there's examples where, and even Cruz, we were talking about this early on, where like I think he said he had maybe a YG interview or some interview where there was some sensitive topic, and it's like, how do you lead up to that? And my current thought process on it is, I want an artist to feel comfortable enough to know that if I do ask something that's a tougher question, like you said, like we're journalists, I'm not going to stray away from that. But if I do ask something that's a tougher question, it's from a genuine place of curiosity, and it's not here to say I got you.
Yeah, it's not malicious.
Exactly. So I'm trying to think. Like, I think one example is like with Smoke Perp at the time. He had it was the conversation about how responsible are you for your fans' behavior, right? And there's people who were saying like, I only tried lean because of Smoke Perp, or I only tried lean because of Future. Juice WRLD is a good example, saying rest in peace. He said, I tried lean because of Future for the first time. So at the time, there was like this conversation around responsibility as an artist and how much should you put weight on that versus like fans can make their own decision and personal responsibility. So we talked, like if you see the clip that you're referring to, I brought up things from his past. Like, he was really into the fact that he knew I knew who he was to some degree. I knew his career journey. I wasn't coming from a place of like, hey, this. And the one question I had for him was, hey, how responsible do you feel? Or, you know, where do you land on that conversation when someone comes up to you and says, hey, I know you talk about lean all the time. I started sipping because of you. And I asked him about it late in the interview. We had already kind of led up to it. We started talking about drug use. I asked him it, and you could tell he had a really genuine moment of like reflection. And he didn't think it was a gotcha question. He really said, and his answer was really telling. He said, you know what? I actually do think, like, I've had people come up to me and say that, and I do feel bad. And he was like, you know what? But if you listen to me saying, try some lean, let's do drugs, you also have to listen to Smoke Perp saying, I went to rehab. You know, and that, to me, that clip didn't blow up. Like, that interview isn't like massive. I don't think that was one of my bigger interviews ever. But to me, that's a moment where it's like, if you make an artist feel comfortable and they know that you're there for them genuinely, you just want to know something, the impact you could have on a kid, and that 17-year-old kid I'm talking about who's maybe into drugs and sees that, could be life-changing. Yeah,
I feel that, because I think with the headlining shit, it's obviously going to move, right? But in that particular moment, when you asked Smoke Perp that question and he was able to reflect, you as a journalist, you don't know what kind of effect that has, not only on his fans, but on him as well. Like, I think we stopped at one point, journalists, interviewers, whatever you want to call us, right? At one point, we stopped looking at the artist or whoever as people. We started looking at them as like products. We started looking at them as like, this is what's going to get me to my next look. This is what's going to get me to my next look. And it's like, but these are people at the end of the day. We can't fuck with people's lives. Like, we literally have a responsibility as journalists, as interviewers, to unravel something that can potentially change lives. And it's either for the good or for the bad.
Yeah. No, that's an amazing point. Like, I overlook that too in some instances where you get, like when I talk about being jaded, you know, when you're coming up, it's not necessarily that you look at them more like people. It's more so like you're just so heavily connected to them as an artist. You know, like we were talking about J. Cole before this. To both of us, I'm sure Cole is still someone where like we feel like we know so deeply because we've listened to his music, we've studied his interviews, we've watched his career arc for so long that we would treat that interview or that moment with J. Cole very preciously. But when you're on the outside of it, sometimes as you keep climbing, you're like, you're right. Oh, what can I get from this person? Where can they take me? And you start to lose, and especially in LA, when people say it's fake, I don't necessarily think it's fake in the sense of like nothing is real here. I think
what's fake? When people say LA is fake? Okay.
I think what they mean is it's very transactional. Right?
Yes.
Like people here, you meet people, and in the same way we're talking about with interviews, it can be a transaction in our mind, which is something we should step away from. When you meet people, you start to realize why people ask you what you do first. Like when you go out and people are like, what do you do? It's not what do you do for yourself. It's what can you do for me?
Yep.
And so once you step back from that and you start to realize like, okay, like for me, I don't even ever ask the question.
I hate asking that question.
I just don't like to ask it. If we get to the point where I know who you are, or I know your character or your values, or even we just connect on some like random shit, but it's a really great connection. At that point, I want to work with you. How can we help each other? How can I help you, provide you with value? How can you help me naturally? And then you start to go like, okay, what are you doing now? What are you doing? What are you working on? Like, how can like our relationship is like, we never really asked each other for anything. It's just, okay, we're bonding together. We had a connection. Now we're doing shit for each other. But I don't know. Like, did you feel like you've experienced that in LA?
Yeah, man. I mean, so when I first moved out to LA, I had no idea how to network. I had no idea how to like move around. And especially coming from the Bay Area, it's like, I have nobody here. Like, I'm kind of just here, right? So when I kept on getting that question, like, what do you do? What do you do? It's like, I'm over here. I do radio. I DJ, da-da-da. But it was never like, well, who are you? Like, what are you into? And it sucks because LA is so much ever moving to the point where it's like there's so many people that you want to meet. And when I was younger in this industry, I always thought like, okay, well, if I'm trying to get to my goal faster, I need to find the person who can help me get to that goal faster. Couple years later, I mean, it's like 2022, so I've been in the industry maybe about, I don't know, 6-7 years now. Now I've just come to realize, you know what, bro? Like, there's so much knowledge and so much you can get out of a person outside of what they do. And I even, I move that towards the interviews that I do now on the podcast, because I'll admit, there's people who I've interviewed because I knew like, yeah, this is a good look. Yeah. This is going to get my numbers high. This is going to do this. This is going to do that. Oh, if I do this clip, if I ask this question, like it's going to get me there. But I've come to realize over the span of the quarantine is that I don't like that shit, bro. Yeah. I just like talking to people and getting their story and seeing how we can connect. And then natural conversation just happens. And, you know, like it's just a lot better, not only for the content that I create, but the conversations and the connection that I have with people after I leave this podcast is much greater. And I think that's something that it's really something I can't replace. I can't replace that with a headline, bro. It's crazy the way like your mind shifts as time goes by when you're in the industry, because you asked me like 6-7 years ago if interviewing like rapper A was worth it. I would have been like, yeah, it's cool. Yeah. But then who knows? Rapper A could have just had like the most gold shit in an interview that you could have just uncovered by asking a simple question as to why. Yeah, the why, and I feel like you've done a really good job of like being on artists earlier and like giving shots to artists and like really help building them, and you kind of get to grow together. Yeah. Like with you, I know you're in radio, but like I've always been curious, like how do you stay up to date on like who's hot right now, or where do you find new music? Like, are you going out of your way for it, or more? That's crazy, bro. So I mean, I've always been somebody who thought of whatever is meant for me will come to me. And that doesn't mean like I'm not going out searching on like Spotify, or I'm not on TikTok or whatever, but like I'm not constantly looking for like, okay, who's the hottest artist out right now? Yeah. But like if a song gets played on the radio because I'm in radio and I'll be able to hear it, or if something shows up on my FYP, I'm like, okay, cool. Like this dude, what's that song? It was like "Fuck You Off This Perk" or something like that. I was like, okay, who's this guy? And then how'd he end up doing the Yin Yang Twin sample? You know what I mean? Like if it shows up on my feed and I'm naturally curious, that's when I start digging. But I'm not gonna go out and dig like, man, this is the hottest person out right now. Well, it's funny because I actually move with a similar philosophy, and I think Charlamagne said it in a podcast a long time ago. He said something like, we only remember what we're supposed to. Yeah. And that always stuck with me because I treat it, in everything I do, I treat it like that. And, you know, maybe it's a little bit of my ADHD. Maybe it's a little bit of me just getting easily distracted. But if I'm reading a book, I used to go back and reread the page 5 times. If I was watching a movie, I would like get distracted, go on my phone, I'd rewind and try to watch it again. But then I started realizing every time I did it, subconsciously, I would do the same thing twice. Yeah. I'd rewind the movie to the part that I missed, and then I'd gravitate to my phone again. Or I would just blink and forget what happened. And so that from then on, I'm like, whatever I'm supposed to hear, whoever I'm supposed to meet, whatever I'm supposed to remember from a conversation, I will. And that, like I said earlier in the podcast, you don't know what it means, but you know it means something. And like I always had this theory of life. I haven't talked about this in a long time, but I remember I had this theory of life as a 17-year-old. Okay. And I didn't feel the need, or I didn't feel like I could even share it because I'm like, who's going to take any advice from a 17-year-old? Who the fuck is going to listen to a 17-year-old, bro? I know everything. and even now, I always claim that I know nothing. But if, you know, this was my theory of life. It was called, have you seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire? Yes. Really good movie. Great movie. So I called it the Slumdog Millionaire theory of life, where in the movie, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's based on this game of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, basically. And there's all of these questions. And this kid gets on, like he's from a really poor area, has nothing, gets the opportunity to become a millionaire, basically, from this show. And all of the questions happen to relate to specific moments in his life. You know, he didn't study for the show. He didn't really do much preparation. All he did was live his life. And he lived, you know, there was traumatic moments, there was blissful moments, but every question related specifically to a certain moment in his life, and he knew the answer. And all of these elites and higher ups keep going, how does he know this? How does he know this? You know, is he cheating? And they're like trying to like
throw them off the path, even writing the wrong answer on the mirror. And my theory on life is we go through experiences and moments and meet people and hear certain things and read certain things and experience things that we don't realize what they mean in the moment. But if you're open to those experiences and you're always present as much as possible, later on, you get questions in your life. And a question could be an opportunity. It could be a new job. It could be a new relationship. But those question moments where it's presented you're presented with something and you start to see, oh, that's why I went through that. That's why 5 years ago this person broke my heart. That's why I didn't get that job opportunity. That's why I had to move. All of these things, you get the answer to that question and you move to the next level in your life. And I think at some point down the road, there'll be the ultimate question, the $1 million question. And that could be when in our 90s, that could be, before we die. But you'll get that ultimate question where you'll realize why you went through everything you went through if you're open and present enough to be that.
You know what's so crazy? I always felt that $1 million question, let's say, not to get dark, but let's say it's at our deathbed, right? I always think the $1 million question was it all worth it? I always think that's what it is because, think about it, bro. We are in this industry where we realistically make no money when we first start out, right? But then the idea is that like by the time we get in our 30s or 40s, that's when like everything is that's when the fruits of our labor actually start to show, right? I'm 28, about to be 29 next month.
Yeah, I'm 27, so okay. You're 93?
I'm 93.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm 93. So that being said, especially right now, it's like, I even told my girl, it's like, look, I don't necessarily have time for this. Like, I got to go do some other shit that has to do with my career.
Yeah.
I'll even like put off some family shit because I'm like, yo, I got to do this shit for my career. I even moved out here to LA. So it's like, I'm missing birthdays. I'm missing some holidays, especially when I first started out. It's like, I'm missing all that shit. Now I'm at this point in my life where I'm coming to realize, okay, cool. Like, now that I'm a little bit more monetarily stable, like now how can I find that balance? Because when it comes to me getting on my deathbed and me getting asked that $1 million question that runs through my head, like, was it all worth it? I want to be able to say, yes, it was.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I like the framing of that, was it worth it? And like the balance aspect I think is such a big aspect of the career and ambition and always striving that doesn't get talked about enough. And shout out to Cole, honestly, the convo that always sticks out in my mind is, you remember that Angie Martinez interview?
Yes, that hour-long freaking interview. So good.
Honestly, and then he went ghost for a long time. But that was one of my favorite conversations because I remember him saying, and it's probably the motto of all 2014 Forest Hills Drive, but basically him saying, like, I was always striving. I was always wanting more. I wanted the Rolex, and then I got the Rolex. I wanted the chain, I got the chain. I wanted the #1 album, I got the #1 album. I wanted to sign to Jay-Z. All these things being respected by his peers. Whatever his goals were, he started to reach them all. And he started to realize, oh shit, it's not about the what, it's about the who. It's about the why, it's about the people around you. It's about who you are at the end of the day and how you spend your time, which is the most precious luxury, like Kanye always says. And so once you start to realize that, it's step one. But the hardest part for me is we've heard enough people say it, right?
Yeah.
We've seen the story play out enough times that we know it's the right thing.
And then we're thinking it's easier said than done, motherfuckers.
But then you're still like, but I want more, bro. I need the next level. So like, how do you, man. I don't know, like what's your level of balance, or how do you find balance in your life right now?
If I showed you my Google Calendar, I think you'd think I'm fucking crazy. Bro, like literally I schedule dates with my girl. Yeah. I schedule workouts. I schedule when I'm going to interview people. I schedule when I'm going to DJ. I schedule when I'm going to create content, bro. And I schedule if I'm going to go on trips, right? And, even when I go back to the Bay, it's like, okay, guys, it's obviously my sister's birthday. It's my niece's birthday. It's whoever's birthday. But afterwards, I got to go to the club and I got to DJ. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm always trying to get like a little piece of every single pie as much as possible. And that comes with a whole bunch of sacrifice, man. How do you organize everything?
I'm working on it. I'm not a very naturally, like, I won't say that I'm not organized, but I'm very creative in the sense of my flow of things. Like, what I'm starting to learn is when I'm inspired, act on that inspiration and be open to that, whatever it is. So like if I want to do comedy one day, I'll focus on it. If I want to rap one day, I'll write songs. If I want to do interviews, I'll put my all into it, scripts, whatever it is. So it's hard for me to say like, all right, on this day I'm gonna do this, or on this day I'm gonna do that. But even my mom sent me a funny text today. She was like, because we were going back and forth on whether or not I actually have ADD. I've never been diagnosed. I know I made a joke before. And she goes, I don't think you have ADD. I think you just put off and procrastinate things you don't like to do. And I'm like, well said. Like some real like literally there'll be some real life shit. Like it'll be like something that I legitimately have to take care of by a certain day, and I'll put it off to like the last day. But I'll go shoot a TikTok video, or I'll go like write a script or do an interview when
you'll crank it out.
Exactly.
Crank it out.
But no, it's hard. I think like it's something I think about a lot. It's something like even like I'll tell some of my younger homies and they'll kind of think I'm crazy the way I'm talking about like, yo, it's gonna be okay. Like take some time to enjoy, be present, give yourself a break, have a day off, be easy on yourself, rest. Like those are things that to me are very important that I almost need to remind myself of, or I need me to be like, yo, it's okay, you know? But it's tough, bro. I don't even have an answer.
I mean, it is tough, bro, because, I mean, there were days where I was doing like 3-4 interviews in one day, and then I have to go to the radio station. Like, I'm sure you've had days like that, too.
And you're like, and what people don't understand looking from the outside about creatives is creativity takes energy. Like, it takes space and mental capacity to create or to be open to create or to have room for ideas. So when you're bogged down into a lot of, like, you know, day-to-day tasks, whether that be for your job or, you know, for stressful situations, or if you're too much in survival mode, or even like we're talking about doing too much for stuff that we enjoy doing, there's no room to think creatively. So like some days I'm like, I do a lot of that, and then like the next day I'm like, man, I have no energy to do anything. But I'm starting to learn like, okay, am I showing up for myself as much as I can in this day? And what do I have capacity for? And can I give myself room to like think creatively? Yeah.
So then what do you do to kind of get those creative juices flowing if you're not, I guess, immediately inspired? Because I'm kind of like you, like, you know, like sometimes it'll be late at night, maybe like 2-3 in the morning. And I'm sure you've had nights like this too, where you're just like, fuck, like I want to do something for my career. I want to like just sit over here and DJ for a bit. I want to listen to music because it's just keeping those creative juices flowing. But there's other nights where it's like, I'm totally not inspired.
Yeah.
And like, I'm looking for inspiration, and I'm just like, it's kind of like a weird obsession, inspiration, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's like this constant, like we're talking about wanting more, this constant need to progress and self-develop and like it's like you sound like a psychopath. Like I need to get better today.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny? So I didn't think about it like this until you just asked me, but it's the same analogy I would have for a rapper who's working on an album, right? My thought process on rap was always make your music, right? Then take a break and live your life so that you have something to speak about on your next album. And that living period is what I call it, is almost more important to the creative than doing the work in between. For example, I don't know that, you know, a J. Cole, like Drake, for example, puts out an album every year. And I'm a massive Drake fan. I'm Canadian, love the guy. Like, he's in my top 5 favorite artists.
So that answers one of my questions I was going to ask later on, because you kept on saying about. I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That's the only word that people are still like, oh, that and pasta. That's what people are like.
And Zed.
And Zed, bro. And they fucked up the whole alphabet. Like, it literally rhymes the whole way through, and then you have to go like X or Y and Z. And it's like, bro, every other word rhymes. Like, can we just not fuck this up?
Okay, so massive Drake fan.
Massive Drake fan, but he puts out an album every year. And the only critique I'd ever had about Drake was that creatively and content-wise, we haven't necessarily gotten a next level. Like, he's been such a high level in the way he thinks about the world, in the way he thinks about relationships, in the way he's been able to produce for so long that it's not like his top level is still top tier. But someone like a Kendrick who takes years off has a lot of perspective to come back with. Yeah. And they have something to say. They have a lot of that's happened in their life. Like a Frank Ocean, I want to know where you're at in life. And so I think when you get too caught up in there's that, right? There's just putting out the album. Or someone like, I think Logic said something like, all I do is I'm in the studio. No, I'm in the studio every single day. I don't go out. I don't like interacting with people. I'm in the studio with my girl, whatever it is. And to me, your album becomes about rapping.
Yeah, your album becomes about the studio because that's all the perspective you get.
And there's nothing wrong. This isn't like a shot at Logic. I love Logic, and there's a lot of rappers who I love who do that really well. Like I'm the greatest. It's all like it's technical. It's about becoming the best rapper and aspiring for more in their craft. But to me, when you asked about inspiration, it sounds strange. But lately, especially, I've found inspiration outside of the work. Like, I get inspired by having a conversation with somebody. I get inspired by an Uber driver telling me something. I get inspired by seeing my friends win and going up to show support to them and seeing that anything from where they've come from and anything is possible. And I've sometimes had these conversations where somebody's asking me about my journey and they're like, yo, I can't believe you did this. And I'm like, whoa, I can't believe I did that either. And I'm able to reflect and not look forward. And so all of those moments literally lead to me going like, yo, I'm inspired right now. How can I create? But if all I did was sit there and immerse myself in the work, I'm getting burnt out. I don't have anything I want to say or tell the world.
I hear you, bro. I mean, I guess to put it in, I guess in my perspective, right? It's like, I'm a huge fan of fucking Pokemon, bro. Huge.
Pokemon? I love, okay, hit me with some Pokemon.
I mean, bro, like I have a Pikachu tattoo right here and everything, bro. Like I'm saying, so it's like, I noticed, because I've DJ'd on Twitch for the past like 2 years, right? And there's only so much music you can talk about, right? There's only so many times you could talk about like artist A, B, all the way down to Z, right?
Z. Okay. Listen, that was a good callback.
So there's only so much you could talk about with artists. So once I started talking about Pokemon shit, or once I started talking about like, I'm Filipino. So once I started talking about like Filipino shit, that's when people are like, oh, okay, I can relate to this guy outside of just like music, and then you become a little bit more personable, Like I think it's the same way when you conduct your interviews, right? Like if all you did was talk about music, like bro, everyone's gonna ask questions about music. Like ask about like literally your first question can be like, how's your day? And then you can grab something from there. Yeah,
and it's so funny because like so twofold on that, like on the artist interview side of things, one of my biggest pieces of advice, if people ever ask me for it, is find somebody's passion point, and when you find it, press the button. Yeah. So, for example, like if I was interviewing you and I realized you were into Pokemon, I'd be like, oh shit, like let's go there. Like let's go as deep as possible. Like let's go down. When did you start loving Pokemon? I'll go in because then you start to see them light up. Their body language is open. So then by the time I transition back to like a tough question, like they're like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm already open. I'm safe there. So on the interview side, there's that. But on the thing that you said that I think is really important for people to hear is 100% owning who you are and expressing who you are in all moments yields the best results. Like it sounds like the most cliche shit ever, but whenever I started to realize like I am all of these things. I love philosophy. I love talking about Nikola Tesla and Albert Einstein. I love, comedy. I love like the art of stand-up and all of these people in this world. And I love hip hop. And I love like, I love just so many things. And when I started bringing those into conversations, into my work, just expressing that into the world, people are like, wow, that's who that is. I feel comfortable. I'm interested in that person. And I think what you're saying is so many people box themselves into what they think they should be, or a field where like, I can't talk about that. I can't be, I'm this.
Yeah, I can't talk about philosophy in a hip hop interview. I can't talk about Pokemon in a hip hop interview.
But when you do, people are like, oh, it's almost like people love seeing somebody who's fearless and fearlessly themselves. So when you are yourself and you talk about things like that, you give permission to the other person. It doesn't have to be an interview. This could be in a conversation. This could be in a relationship. This could be in a friendship and networking. When you are yourself fearlessly, without care, without worry about judgment, you open the floor up for them to be themselves. Oh, this person's so comfortable. I don't feel like I should try to impress them. I don't feel like I need to puff my chest up. Nobody likes the guy who thinks he's too cool.
Yeah, facts. I think it's the reason why people really enjoyed Tyler. I mean, people still enjoy Tyler, but the reason why Tyler was just so effective right away and immediately is because he came out with something so different, not knowing that him being different was actually just him being himself.
Dude, Tyler's the greatest. I would say Tyler's the greatest gross story I've ever seen in music. Ever. Any genre, any artist.
Gross?
Growth.
Oh, gross. I heard gross. I'm like, I mean, I know he was eating the cockroach, but you know.
Yeah, the cockroach thing was crazy. But you go from the cockroach to him scoring a Grinch film. And the contrast in that itself is so crazy. And if you look at how he did it, like you said, it's him being so fearless in his creativity, so fearless in, you're not going to box me in. That exactly what I just said about him, when you do that, when Tyler was so fearless in not worrying about judgment and being himself and going onto the next thing outside of the box that people placed him in, his fan base followed. Everyone went with him. And you don't always see that. And the reason why you don't always see the fan bases go with them is because people are changing for the sake of changing, or changing because the label told them to change, or change them out of fear, not love. They're like, oh, well, I need to do something different because they're not going to follow. Tyler, it was always pure creativity and love. I want to do this. I'm going to do it. If you're with me, you're with me. If not, cool. I'll leave you in the past. It was a good run. And people have gone with him through every step.
So what got you into philosophy?
You know what's crazy? I was thinking, it's a good question. I was thinking back about this the other day because I'm like, where did my shout out to my therapist. I've had, listen, I've had 2 therapy sessions, so I'm not on here acting like an expert.
Hey, I appreciate you being open about therapy too, by the way, bro.
Listen, it's been very helpful for the past 2 weeks.
Nice.
But she said something. She's like, what? Because I overthink things and I think too far into the future. And sometimes I get into am I making the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? Where's this going to lead? What are the results? What are the outcomes? But she said, if you're making a decision based on your values and your core and what you are, you're never going to regret it. It might not be the exact outcome you want, but you can't look back. When you said that $1 million question, if you're end of your life, you look back and all your decisions lined up in the moment of you making it based on your value system, you can't regret anything. So I realized that one of my core values was always just curiosity. Like when I was a kid, I was like 6th grade. I remember talking with my friend Griffin, and he was always been one of my best friends. And we were talking about life. 6th grade. We were like, yo, what do you think this all means? You know what I mean? We're like literally thinking like, how did we get here? Like those are the type of things I was thinking about at 6th grade. And so then once it started to get to 9th grade, it really coincided with my love of hip hop, because I remember like falling in love with Cudi. I'm one of those Kid Cudi changed my life guys. You know, the hum hit the soul and the heart. Heart. He should have an album called Heart Humming. That would be fun.
Heart humming, huh?
You know, Cudi. But so I remember like listening to him, and you know he was always searching and always felt lost. Even some early Drake stuff to me felt like he was like searching for purpose and meaning in life. And so I was always thinking about those things. So when I started falling in love with hip hop, it was like, oh, okay, I can put these thoughts into writing. And I started writing raps, and it was all very contemplative. And I'm sure some of it was like, she didn't text me back. You know what I mean?
I saw a couple of them videos, bro. You could rap.
So here and there I got bars. But when I was in college, it was like, what I remember taking intro university classes, like, and I did sociology, psychology, philosophy, all these things. And I remember, and even an intro to university class, which is crazy that they have an intro. They make you take a class that's an intro to university.
Like how to go to college?
It's like how to go to college. I'm literally paying you to tell me how to be here. It's like
nice.
Crazy. So shout out to them. But I was most interested in philosophy. And so I was like, you know, I didn't have any outcome-based thing in that decision. I was like, I don't know. I don't think that's going to lead me anywhere. I'm not trying to be a philosophy professor. Shout out to my philosophy professors, but that wasn't my dream. But I was just also really interested in, like, you know, where did we come from? Is there an afterlife? Is there reincarnation? What is God? Are we part of God? Is, like, what is the universe? How do things work? Like, and to me, it was more so like, do other people not think about this? I was like, wait, do people live their life normally and happily and just like walk around and just like do things and not realize we're on this flying rock in the middle of nowhere and everything's connected, but also everything matters and nothing matters at the same time? It's like, so I'm sorry for taking it there.
No, keep on going, bro. Just for the record, we did not smoke or take any sort of edibles before this. I love it though, man. I love it. So keep going.
So once I started to realize that, it was the curiosity thing at the core value that really led me to be like, that's why I love interviews. Because I get to be curious. I get to ask questions that I just want to know. Like I get to, and it became more of like story-based questions, like specifically you, what do you think? Or you did this. But like the ultimate curiosity still exists in our relation to universal consciousness. What is this person I'm talking to? What is their place within this all? You know, how many people have they impacted? What is their thinking process? What am I going to say on this podcast right now that might influence someone else later on in their life? They could watch this 10 years down the road and I said something that sparked their mind to open up and ask certain questions about themselves. And then who knows the influence that they had, you know? I'm like very conscious of like individual impact that we have on people's lives right now. I think I just went on a tangent, but that's where I'm at.
You know, it's so funny because I've always found myself, and I've actually never admitted this, but I've always found myself like not reading, even though we're in media. Like I always find myself like not wanting to look at headlines or anything like that. And so when I started doing interviews, I figured out it was a cheat code, not only for other people to, you know, gain knowledge and whatnot, but like it was a cheat code for me. Because I was always the type of person to seek out knowledge and information based off conversations that I have with other people. And the more conversations I have with people, the more I'm able to, I guess, distinguish what's good for me and what's bad for me. So having you in here and having all my guests in here, I've like acquired such a bank of knowledge that I wish other people would also like, you know, gravitate toward too. And it's kind of interesting how I guess we seek knowledge in that way, because you find it through philosophy and genuine curiosity when you ask people certain questions. I find it through these interviews and these podcasts because I'm like, yo, like it's kind of a reflection of my own life itself too.
Yeah, I was just thinking that when you were saying that, like, because conversation is another, like, if curiosity is a value, genuine human connection is another big thing for me. And it's funny because often I find the best things for yourself are also the best things for everyone else around you. Like, if you do things with unselfish intent, often it is helping you, even if you're not aware of it. So when you're talking to all of these people, like, you're genuinely curious about the person you're asking. You're trying to get like their story out into the world. You're trying to get their information out into the world. But a lot of the times conversation becomes a reflection of yourself. You start to piece things together. Oh, why did I connect so much to that? Why did what they said really hit me on a different level? Or the opposite. Why did I not like that conversation? Why do I never want to talk to someone in that vein again? You know, like, what was it? It becomes a reflection of you. And in the same way, I think career-wise, everyone's so focused on how can I benefit me? How can I pull myself up? Like, people say, like, nice guys don't last. I say they last the longest. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're going to be there at the end of the day. It might take longer. You might have, more of a spirally path. But at the end of the day, if you pulled everybody up with you, if you were good to everybody along the way, you're going to be there with everybody else. Versus somebody who, cut corners and was an asshole to everybody. You might get there, but you're going to get there and you're going to look around and you're going to be miserable. There's going to be nobody else you're with. Mm-hmm. And it's not, and like, when you judge success, you have to take into account peace of mind. You know what I mean? And I don't know, because I haven't been around that many people who have been assholes and successful, but I don't know how many of those people have peace of mind.
On contrary, though, I think that you have been around so many people who are successful. Like, I mean, just to name a couple of the interviews that you've done, like, The Game, Jeezy, Joey Badass, the list just kind of goes on and on and on and on. So, I mean, I feel like I've been around a lot of successful people and I've gotten a piece of their mind states about like what success actually is. You've been around so many people with the same type of mindset. Like, from your perspective, I guess, what does success mean? Like, is success even like something that you can grasp? Do you measure it monetarily? Do you measure it like internally? Like, how do you measure success?
I think it's constantly changing and evolving. And like you said, some of those conversations are enlightening to me because I do like hearing, all right, you got it. You got everything you wanted. How do you feel? And I think currently I'm debating on what success is to me, but my current thought process is it's not happiness. I think a lot of people say success is happiness, right? The people who say it's not money, they'll be like, it's not money. Success is how happy you are. And my current thought process on it is, I don't think that that's correct, because I think happiness is also fleeting. Like happiness is an emotion, a feeling. You could feel happy from being super drunk. Like you could just be having a good night, and you could be very happy. You could be in a happy relationship. You could have a happy day. That doesn't mean to me that you're successful. It means that you're present. It means that you're having a good moment. The next day you could feel bad. Does that mean you're unsuccessful the next day? You're having a tough day, and so you need to climb back up to get it. So I've kind of put that thought process aside. I don't think it's money. I think we figured that one out.
We figured that one out.
Yeah, we know that. So not happiness, not money. So then what's left? I think a few things could equal success together. And again, this is just like my thought process on things. I don't necessarily have an answer, but peace of mind is one where, like we were talking about, if you've acted in accordance with your character, if you've acted in everything you do, in your interactions with people, in your career, you've acted in a line with who you're trying to be and a good person and have a good heart and your soul, and you feel like you're on the same frequency that you've wanted to be on, you're successful in that mind. You can have peace of mind at the end. You can go to sleep. You know what I mean? I think Belly said that once. He's like, success to me is being able to go to sleep every night, knowing I didn't fuck a bunch of people over, and being able to sleep well at night.
Damn.
And I was like, you know what? Definitely that stems from some situations that I don't even want to go into, but like it's true. If you're able to sleep well at night, that's part of it. I think the other part of it is being able to do things, like feeling the freedom to do what you want to do on your own terms. So to me, like success would look like I wake up and it's not that I have no stress. It's not that I'm free of all responsibility. I don't think I would function well in that. So this is for me personally, but I think it would be like, hey, if I want to create a show in the next 6 months, I have the resources to do it. I have the network to do it. I have the idea to do it, and I can execute on that idea. So it's fulfillment of creative ideation for me. That's part of my success. If I want to have, and then balance, I think is a third. So peace of mind, fulfillment of creative ideation, and balance would equal success to me. I have everything I want in my career. I can continue to strive like we were talking about. I can continue to ask for more, but I have a loving family. You know what I mean? I have a wife who looks at me in the eyes and respects me and supports me and sees the human being I am, and I'm the same for her. I have friends around me that, have been with me, that know who I am, that I can call and don't need to worry about them, giving me some bullshit or just saying yes to me, like calling me out when I need to, being there for me when I need them to. And at the end of the day, if I look in the mirror and I'm like, you know what? I like who I see. I think that that's success.
That's so crazy, bro. I also love the fact that I guess it doesn't necessarily directly correlate with your career. I mean, obviously, like with your career, right? Like your career kind of like serves as a catalyst for all those things, right? But it wasn't like, I think some people might have expected the question, oh, I just interviewed J. Cole. That's success. I just interviewed Kendrick Lamar. That's success.
Yeah.
It's crazy because I feel like a lot of the times we put our success into other people or things or these accomplishments that we set for ourselves. And that's why it comes to the fact that once we acquire these accomplishments, more times it's like, like this is dope. But
then what?
Then what? Because it's literally just that moment. It lasts for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Seconds.
Dude.
Little moments.
It's so crazy. And people don't understand it. Like, this is what I say, and I'm not trying to sound like an asshole saying this, but I can say it to you because you've done all these things too, where a random day of the month for you might be someone's pinned photo. And I say that meaning like that could be the highlight of what they would want to portray themselves as or what they would want to tell the world or show people. This moment. To you, it was a Wednesday. You know what I mean? So, you sound like an asshole saying that, but all that to say, when so many things that you wanted start to happen, if you put too much stake into any one of them, you're actually going to be more unhappy because you're like, I got this and I don't have the feeling of fulfillment.
Yeah.
So for me, I have no doubt in my mind the things that I'm going to do. Like and I'll say this like here, and I'll probably look back on it in 10 years. You know what I mean? Like I will have interviewed J. Cole and Kendrick and Kanye and Drake and Cudi. I will have spoken to them in one form or another. I don't know if it's an interview, a show, red carpet, documentary, whatever. I will have spoken to them. But if I put all of my stake into that's the moment I made it, or that's the moment I'm successful, what's next? You know what I mean? What if that happens in a year? What if that happens 5 years, 10 years? I have 50 years left, you know? So like, rather than into each accomplishment or each level, like Cole said, it's like, all right, how do you feel? What are you feeling around those moments? And like, I don't know about you, but I do have trouble stepping back and reflecting. And it's not till I look back at my own self that I'm able to see like, whoa, I've done a lot of things. I've come far. Yeah. I'm proud of myself, you know? I
think my my loved ones, they always give me shit for this, and they're just like, you need to learn how to relax.
Yeah, for real. Like Drake has that line where he said, it's on too much. I forget the exact line, but he's like, diss drop and 1 million copies get pressed out. She told me take a deep breath. You too worried about it. You too stressed out. And like it's like a funny line, but it's like I'm imagining Drake sitting there with some girl, probably a great looking woman, probably, you know, fun loving woman he's with, giving him a back massage, and he's sitting there stressed out like, oh man, am I gonna sell 1 million? Am I gonna go platinum?
Yeah.
Like me and Kendrick are going back and forth. Am I gonna be? And she's like baby, it's okay. Let's just enjoy this moment. You know, like it's tough.
I feel you know what's so funny, like listening to because, you know, you and I grew up around the same era, right? So we listen to Cole, we listen to Drake, we listen to Kendrick, all the greats, right?
Yeah.
It's funny listening to those lines when you're younger and not necessarily knowing what they're talking about. But then as you get older, you come to realize, like, whoa, like, these were the subtle hints that they were giving us throughout the years. I say it like this, like, E40 is literally in my top 5, right? And growing up listening to E40, Might Get a Report Card, all that shit, it was like, I wasn't necessarily sure what he meant by like reinvesting your funds or, you know, like having a hustler's mentality.
Yeah. You're like my piggy bank, sure.
Yeah, it's like, okay, cool. You know, I make $5 here, $5 there, sure. But then it's like when you get older, you come to realize like, whoa, like he was actually taking all his money, putting it back into himself and then seeing how far he can go with it. It's the same reason why Nipsey Hussle is so great. You know what I mean? Like it's because he was talking about those things that maybe you were picking up, but you weren't truly paying attention to. And then when something tragic like his death happens, that's when we're just like, you go back and you're just like, whoa, he was talking all this real shit this whole fucking time.
Yeah. And it goes back to like kind of what we've been saying about these, like, you don't know what the things you're listening to actually mean to you until you do. And
until like, later on.
Yeah. And now I realize like a lot of that stuff did influence me. And it's cool listening. And I think that's why a lot of the music I listen to is like, I think people would expect me to always be like listening to new music. I'm very nostalgic and music to me is comfort rather than it is like new experience. I'll attach new songs to new experiences and then that'll be a part of that comfort.
Yeah.
But I go back, I'm like, where was I in life at this point? Oh, okay, I can relate differently to this line. And then same thing is now I see how far I've come because I remember where I was when I listened to that then and look how I'm at now. Even if it's like, you know, listening to a song that I was going through a heartbreak and now I'm not heartbroken, I can listen to that song differently now. Oh, wow, you've grown.
What's a song that I guess sticks out to you like right now?
I'm thinking like right now, the first song that popped into my mind is like Jungle by Drake.
Wow. Okay. That's a huge cut, by the way. I haven't listened to that song in a minute.
Long time.
So why that record?
Because I remember exactly where I was in life when it dropped. I remember different relationships, different women that I've associated with it, different successful moments. And I recently listened to it and like I didn't feel any of the emotions that I had felt listening to it over the years. And it was, to me, it was almost a moment of growth. It was weird. Like, so I remember listening to it in 2015 when it dropped. And I was graduating college. We talked about philosophy. I was writing my final philosophy paper. And I remember he had a short film at the time called Jungle. And I remember it was 3 a.m. I was writing my last ever philosophy paper. I think at the time I probably had committed to coming out to LA. So I was like, I'm out of here, you know, but I still want to give a good paper. So I was listening to that album and listening to that song. And I had just gone through a breakup. you know, and I was like sad about it. I didn't understand all of the things he was talking about, like all these girls keep switching majors and doing bottle service on the weekend. I didn't understand like the LA city life, but it really resonated. And then I remember, you know, being in another relationship, and I was living in Toronto, and we had just started dating, and I was listening to that song, and it hit different. It was more of a loving emotion, and, you know, even like, you know, recently listening to it, and I was like going through another breakup, and, you know, but I was at a much better point in my career, and I had achieved all this success, and so it hit in a way where it's like this duality of like, you know, when you're not here, who am I gonna call when I have all these things but I don't have the person? And, you know, recently I listened to it, and I just didn't feel any of that. I felt like, you know what, my timeline with that song is almost completed in a sense of like, wow. I've overcome a lot. I'm comfortable with where I'm at, with who I am. I don't need somebody else to fulfill a lot of that void. I don't need things or success to fill that void. I just feel good about where I'm at. And maybe this is completely overanalyzing a sad Drake song, but like I think about things like that, you know? Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. Because the way I view that song is the last time I remember playing that song was at a Joey's restaurant. I'm sure you know what Joey's is, right? Yeah. It's a Canadian restaurant.
Yeah, Joey. Yeah. Dude, that used to be, we used to go there all the time. That's crazy.
So there's a Joey's restaurant in Woodland Hills, and then the owner at the time, he was Canadian. He was like, "Hey, play that Jungle by Drake." I'm like, all right, bro, whatever. but it's kind of crazy how like we you know, you and I have the same song in mind. And there's two different backstories.
Dude, the fact that you just brought up Joey is crazy. Like that was the spot where like all the like the baddest girls in the city used to work at Joey, and like this is when I was like 18, 19, you know, like and you would go there and like hang out on the patio, and then it became like this scene where like I wanted to go nowhere near there because the crowd there, I'm like, I just do not want to associate with these people. But the fact that you mentioned Joey,
bro, I'm saying, man. But the thing, you know, the moral of that story is that like, you know, the reason why we resonate to songs so much and so hardly is because like it brings us back to a certain moment in our life, right? Like I'll say this, like I was texting my homie Jamie Baby, she's a DJ in the Bay Area, right? And she was like, so when you first started like blowing up on TikTok, like, you know, were you posting every day? And I was like, honestly, I got kind of lucky because I started doing like a whole MySpace theme worth of like TikTok videos. And I know the reason why it worked was because it's a moment in time that just hit people a different way. It was just nostalgia. So for me, like during that MySpace area, like I was so much of a simp, bro. I was crying over girls. I was trying to get girls, you know, like just mixed emotions like all the time. And I guarantee you that when people hear those songs back, or even just got them in a list, or like, oh my God, like that's literally how I was feeling too.
Yeah, and it's again you giving permission to people to be themselves.
Yeah, it's like, hey, it's okay to be you.
Yo,
that's it.
It's, sad boy. This is sad boy season. Okay, it is time. It is time that the simps out there get their proper recognition. Okay, they're not acknowledged enough. They're not openly out there. A lot of people are embarrassed to be a simp, but we make everything else go around. We make the guys look good who come in and are assholes and aren't the simps because they're like, oh, that's how that guy was. This guy's doing that. Like, let me just not do any of that and come in and steal this girl right here.
It's fucking simp season 2022, all 2022. By the way, this is coming from the guy who is from Toronto. I don't know why, bro. What is it about Toronto that just makes it so like simpy, just so like in your feelings, bro? That's where Drake's from. That's where Bieber's from too.
Bieber, The Weeknd. I'm from Winnipeg, but I did live in Toronto. Okay. What I will say about Canada in general and Toronto specifically, the winters are really cold, right? It takes a lot of effort. And I was talking to my homie today who was like talking about going out with a girl, and he was debating on whether or not to go out or just stay in and like cuddle and have wine. And texted me this morning, he's like, bro, it's -30. I don't have the energy to go out. I think I'm just going to call it some cuddles and chats tonight.
There we go.
And so with Toronto, with Canada, it's so cold that the amount of energy it takes to go out is exponential. If you're going to do something, you're like, wow, I really need to want to do it. And so A, that, B, it's very dark and cold, which is like that moodiness that you hear in like a 40 beat or a Weekend song. It's dark, it's cold, and your summers are really, really memorable. Like you associate music with your summers. You try to stay outside as much as possible. But when that winter hits, which is a long period of the year, you kind of just want to cuddle with someone, bro. You just need somebody to comfort you and stay with you and watch movies. And so you're naturally just going to be more of a simp because you don't have the energy to go outside and meet people at the club because you have to wait a negative 40 lines in order to get in there and get a number.
Man. And I'm over here. I mean, I really want to go to Toronto, though, bro.
It's fire. Go in the summer, though. Caravana, OVO Fest. Yeah, go in July.
So you must have got tired of all the coldness, all the minus 40 degrees. So you were like, let me just go to one of the hottest places in the United States.
I said, I'm never going back. Yeah. I went back for a winter this year, and I love my family. I love my friends there. But I'm never going back for another winter. I just cannot do it. Like, think about it. It does build character. It makes you strong. Like I will say, I have no regrets with where I was born or where I grew up. I love Winnipeg. I love the people there. They're so nice. But like the amount of energy it takes to wake up early, start your car before you get in it, start it, just leave the keys in there. You know, somebody, if you don't have a push to start, you're just leaving the keys in there. Somebody could steal your car. It's fine. Nobody has the energy to even steal a car out there. You go back inside. You let it heat up. You go back outside in your boots, in your snow jacket. You have to have like a Pusheisty ski mask on, or otherwise your nose is frozen.
Yeah.
And you defrost the windshield, like scrape it.
Oh my
Scrape
God.
that shit. Then you have it defrosted on the inside. Then you're driving, and you're probably going to be late because you can't drive very fast and it took so long to get ready. You're going to be late and then you can't see because your window freezes up and you think about like, should I risk it here? Should I pull over? Should I look out my window? Because then I risk being cold on the outside.
Oh my God.
Should I just continue? And so it builds strength in that sense, you know?
Oh, it definitely does. I feel like I cannot survive that shit at all. I'm from the Bay where it's just like always cold, but not that cold.
Well, it's because it's like what? You have like a fall, right? Like you have like an autumn. Like you wear a nice
we have an
jacket.
autumn, yes. Okay, so question, like, because I'm not hip to like Canada in general, right? So obviously there's like East Coast versus West Coast over here in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, is that kind of the same when it comes to like Toronto or like Vancouver?
It's Toronto versus everybody.
Oh,
Yes. The way that you just said, like, oh, you're from Toronto too. People like that's what everyone assumes when you say you're from Canada. People go, oh, you're from Toronto, or I'm from somewhere else. Oh, is that near Toronto? Everything's like my friend Shale, when we were in like 6th grade, he made this. It was like a meme before a meme, but we had a geography test and it was like write a map of Canada, and he was like, here's my map of Canada. Here's my map of Canada that everybody else sees Canada as, and it was Toronto in this big circle in the middle, and then a bunch of dots on the outside, and so it's really like. And Toronto, listen, shout out to all my Torontonians out there. Torontonians,
okay.
Good people, and this isn't all of you, but some of you out there have a little bit of an ego. I'm not gonna lie.
Sheesh.
Listen, I'm throwing this shot. Toronto thinks that they're the LA of Canada. They're not. A. And B, they like look down on anyone who's not from there. Like the entitlement that you think LA people have, Toronto people have times 10.
Damn, that's crazy. Hey, he said it, not me. I have no experience with Toronto at all, bro.
And I love Toronto. I love, like I said, this isn't all of you, but some of you out there. All I'm saying is, if I were to say I'm from Winnipeg in Toronto,
oh man. Shouts out to Toronto, Winnipeg, Brampton,
yeah, Tory.
Shouts out to Brampton, and shouts out to Vancouver, because I got a whole bunch of people over in Vancouver
yeah,
too.
good people. Yeah, shout out to Vancouver. No, shout out to Toronto too. I'm gonna get banned from the city.
So when'd you move to LA?
This is 2016.
Oh,
so, yeah, 5 years now.
Damn, bro.
When did you? Were you same year before?
2014.
2014. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of been here around the same time.
Yeah. I've seen it. I don't know. Does it feel any different than when you first?
It feels completely different, man. I mean, again, when I first moved out here, I had like no friends. I had no sense of direction at all. Like, I didn't even realize I wanted to be in radio until I moved out in LA. And then I kind of just like found people who kind of helped guide me, mentor me, so on and so forth. And then now it's like, you know, as you were saying, those simple things is like, let's say getting a job at the radio station or getting an interview with somebody, or I mean, as of recently, like going to Corday's album release, and then, you know, just quote unquote DJing for Dave Chappelle.
Yo, that's,
you know what I mean?
That's
like,
crazy, bro.
It's kind of crazy, but at the same time, I'm kind of just like, You know what's crazy? It's a regular thing.
It's crazier that you could tell yourself it now and you believe it. You know what I mean? Like you say it out loud and it's not like as crazy as you once would have thought. Like 2014, you like, yo, you're gonna DJ for Dave Chappelle at Corday's album release party. I don't even know if Corday was around, but there's gonna be this new kid. He's gonna be like one of the hottest rappers in the game, and then one of the greatest comedians, if not the greatest comedian of all time, is gonna be there, and you're DJing for him. You'd be like, whoa. Now you say it out loud, you're like, and not in a cocky way. You're just like, okay,
yeah,
I can see it. I'm aligned with that frequency. Like, I believe that I'm supposed. You have less imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But like, when did that happen for you? Like, was there a moment?
Ooh, damn, that is crazy, man. You know, I honestly think it's just a compilation of so many things adding up.
Yeah.
And then you come to realize that we idolize rappers, comedians, famous people so much to the point where we're the one who creates the barrier between ourselves and the other person.
Yeah.
You know, like I still see Dave Chappelle as like the greatest comedian of all time. I've met Cole, and I think Cole is like the greatest rapper of all time. But you know what? To answer your question now, I think it was the moment when I met J. Cole where I realized like everybody is a human being. It was at the Real 92.3 concert back in 2017 or 2018 at the Forum.
Yeah.
And I had met him for a brief moment. We chopped it up. And the first question he asked me, he was like, "How was your day?"
Right? He didn't say, "What do you do?"
Yeah, he didn't ask me, like, "What do I do?" He was like, "How is your day going?" And I'm like, my day is just, it's going amazing, man. I mean, it's a dope concert. Got to meet you. And it was crazy thinking, like, I got to meet you. That was, like, the highlight of the day, right? And long story short, you know, I ended up shaking his hand. I didn't wash my hand for a couple hours and shit.
Still, I hear, yeah. went to the bathroom. There's like a spot for your hand on the.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because I think it was really at that moment where I realized, like, yo, like I was simply there just doing my job, and that moment just so happened to happen. He was there simply doing his job, and that moment just so happened to happen. Then you come to realize, like, everything moving forward, like, they're all just moments. You know, these are all just, like, little things that we gravitate to because they were so, I guess, important in our lives. And then when you finally when you see something as, like, something so valuable. So I saw that moment as, like, one of the most valuable moments of my life. It kind of seems like everything else, I guess if you were, what am I trying to say? If I was ungrateful, everything else would not seem as valuable. But instead, I've come to realize that moment I met with J. Cole is just as valuable as every other moment that I've had with, like, every other person.
Yeah.
So once you come to realize, like, everything isn't, like, about ups and downs, and everything is kind of just, like, you know, you're just, like, moving like this.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's kind of hard for me to explain.
No,
but
I think it's like it's oddly been the theme of this conversation is that flow of life and those moments and everything happening, and you know, some you notice in the moment, this is big, this is mattering more than maybe it feels like other ones are, but all of the moments that led up to that were just as important to get you there. And then another moment that passed, you met J. Cole, and then you shook the server's hand who was bringing the drinks that night, and then you realize, you know, 2 years later that server ends up becoming one of the biggest rappers in the world. Hey, I met you at the J. Cole. Like, so, like, it's about the moments you know, the moments you don't know, but consistently being open to all moments. I think that's the thread that, like, all right, if I move like that, it's going to flow.
Realizing that every moment affects you unknowingly.
Yeah.
When did you stop getting jaded?
Probably, honestly, not till recently. Like, there's been moments that have been surreal. Like, I remember, like, early on, like, every time I was in the room with these people, it was like, whoa, like, this, like, Big Sean, Migos, like, Schoolboy Q. Like, Schoolboy Q's roasting me on my fashion. This is amazing, you know what I mean? Like, and then once I started doing my own interviews, I was, like, still to the point where I was like, all right, this is weird. And then I remember there was like a time where I was like, I feel like I'm supposed to be here. I think it was this is actually a cool full circle moment. So I remember I was at this. It was Belly's album release party, and I was walking in. I walked in super late. I was with this girl, and it was like 12:30, and I was like trying to act like a boss. I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Like, we'll skip the line. Like, we're pressed. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everyone uses the card every once in a while." And we walked in, and we were walking down to the dance floor, and I hear on the mic, it was Jeremy to the DJ booth, Jeremy to the DJ booth, and I was like, "This is weird. Like, why? Like I literally, like, The Weeknd was there, you know, like people, like, I'm like, what is going on? Like, I just walked in, and it was Cruz, and he was DJing that night, or like hosting that night, and like when I came up to him, he was like, "Bro, like, you know, like, I always saw it in you, and like you're exactly where you're supposed to be." And like he you know, this whole interview's been full circle, but he mentioned that game interview, and he's like, "I saw what you did with the game. Like, he's like, you're dangerous, bro. Like, I'm so glad to have met you and like to have been a part of your journey," or whatever he said to me that really like lit a fire. But also, it was like, oh shit, all right, I'm supposed to be here. You know what I mean? Like my mentor's telling me that. I'm at an event that I would have, you know, once tried hard to get into, and I just walked in, and all of these things, and I was living the life that I had always dreamed of living in all of these other senses, and so comfortable with where I'm at that it was like, oh, you're right where you're supposed to be. So it's weird that it was like a small thing, in that sense, but to me it was like big, of like, okay.
Yeah, I feel like it was just that little sense of acknowledgement too.
Yeah.
And not that it's ever needed, right? I don't think acknowledgement is ever needed, but when it's given to you at a very unexpected moment, that's when you realize, like, wow, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And it's almost like, and the only other moment that recently where I think it's happened, because like I said, all this is like within the last year. Like before that, it was still like, whoa, what? Like, I can't believe it. And not that it's not in that sense. I try to still, there's little thing. I use a palm tree every once in a while as like a reminder of where I'm at, you know, and just like, I'm not in Canada, you know, I'm living my dream in LA. But when I got the chance to interview Wiz at his studio, and it was, and I don't even say that lightly. Like, I say it out loud. I'm like, whoa, that's still to me crazy. But when I did, I was working on a documentary with a team, and with him and his team, and I had never produced a documentary before. So my first experience producing a documentary is with Wiz Khalifa.
That's fucking crazy.
Like, high stakes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know like what to do. I don't know how to do this. Like, I know how to interview people.
Yeah.
So I'm at his studio, and I always have notes. Like, I always have like a sheet, and I'm very much planned. Like, what's next? You know what I mean? Like with the game interview, it was like, how can I take him here? And then he's gonna say this probably, so I have something prepared. And with Wiz, and honestly, shout out to my ex-girl. We were high on mushrooms one time, and I remember I was like so focused on like that interview, and I was like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna say? What am I gonna, like, what if I take him here? And then she was like, what do you think he wants to say that day? And it hit me so deep.
Wow.
Right? Because I was like, damn, you're right. Like, this isn't about me. Like, I'm a vessel here. Like, what do they want to share with the world, and how can I help bring it out of them? And so ever since then, I literally, so like, I would never not give credit to people who've helped me in my life. That changed the way I interviewed for sure. And I still think about it. So with Wiz, I was like, let me not be super calculated with it. Like, there's points I want to hit. There's a story arc that I have that in my head I want it to be. But at the end of the day, art isn't what you want it to be. It's what it is to people. And so with Wiz, I sat there, no notes, just conversation first. We spoke for an hour and 15, and I didn't get to every point that I had written down earlier. Like, I did have stuff written in my phone. Didn't look at it. Didn't get to every point. But I think I got exactly what the world needed to hear and what he needed to say to the world. And that moment also made me feel like, okay, I can do anything. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think, I've never produced a documentary. I've never interviewed someone who I've connected with like Wiz on the middle child generation to that level. But I did it, and it worked, and it was good. It's like, anything I want to do, I can do. Even if I don't feel prepared, I will prepare. I'll always succeed. I'll always get to the place I'm trying to be. And so like those two moments, I think where I'm like, okay, and now I'm comfortable in where I'm at, and put less pressure on myself.
Man, come on, bro. That was lit.
Thank you, bro.
You honestly changed my perspective on it too. Well, in the sense of just like It's not about what I want to talk about. It's about what you want to talk about. I feel like, and you know, as much as we've put out, it's so funny because before an interview, I usually consume like as much content as I can, like in regards to the person, right? So it's like, I mean, we didn't even mention that, you know, you work for HipHopDX, like anything like that, right? We didn't mention any of that up until an hour and 14 into the interview, right? Or, you know, the fact that like, I even had this like one topic in my head in case we didn't get to it, but it was like, it's crazy how back then everything was like super produced, but now we can literally be like a journalist just like on our phone and just, you know, just like make something out of it. Like, and those were like little topics that I had in my head, right? And I'm honestly kind of glad that we didn't get to those things because now it's just like a full-fledged conversation about like, I mean, everything we've talked about.
I'm thankful for, you know, you having me here. I think, and this conversation, like who knows what this will mean, but I'm inspired. Like when you ask where I get inspiration from, I'm inspired now. I'm like, you know what I mean? Like I got to reflect on certain things. I got to piece things together in this conversation. I'm sure like I learned things from you, and I'm sure like we'll go back, I'll listen to this, I'll watch a clip or whatever. I'll be like, okay, now I know what's next. And so like, but it is one of those things where expectation is such a killer of so many things. Like if you expect to get something out of an interaction when it becomes transactional, if you expect to get something out of a person, if you expect somebody to act in a way that they haven't ever acted before, but you expect them to act that way because you act that way in that situation, or if you expect something out of like, you know, your work or whatever it is, it's like you can only disappoint yourself. But if you're open with no expectations and you're prepared, but you're just open to where it goes, it's like those are my favorite moments. It's harder said than done. I don't do it all the time. But whenever I do, if I go out, even a night, you know what I mean? If I have expectations of a night for like weeks and weeks and weeks and I go out and it wasn't that, you know, I'm disappointed. But if I oh, hey, you want to do this thing? Like, okay, sure. Whoa, this thing was crazy. This was fun.
There's so much beauty. There's so much beauty in the spontaneity that this world can offer you. My last question, was that 555 on your right forearm spontaneous or purposeful?
It was very much a combination of both. It was very much a combination of both. I'm glad we got to end there because it was so I had moved out this was end of March 2021. So it was, which is almost a year ago now, which is crazy. But I was having kind of the most turbulent time of my life is how I would describe it. Like I was going through me and my ex-girl who I spoke on from that interview, you know, it was a loving relationship. I have no bad words to say, but we just kind of parted ways. It was time after 4 years, and we were living together for 3 of them. So I was going through kind of like heartbreak in that sense. That Wiz documentary that I spoke on, that I got the call for that probably either a week before or a week after that breakup. And so I did the interview in the midst of this. I was moving apartments, living on my own for the first time. I'd never lived on my own without a roommate. And I was doing kind of the best that I had done career-wise and personally, you know, like I feel like I was very comfortable with who I am. And so after, you know, I moved out, all of these, you know, things were changing in my life, and I had never dealt well with transitions. Like, you know, I hate to go back to my elementary school self, but at the same time, I think we all are our core self a lot of the times. My teachers always said apparently that I was bad with transitions. They would always be like, Jeremy's very smart, he's very talented, he's, you know, a good student, but whenever we switch subjects, he has trouble gearing back up. You know, it takes him the first 20 minutes before he's in it. Otherwise, he's like still on the last thing. So for me to overcome that and like transition and find myself was like a big accomplishment in itself. And so all of that to say, a lot was going on in my life. And over the next couple months, I had started seeing the number 555 everywhere, but it was to the point where like I didn't know anything about angel numbers. I wasn't like a super big believer. Like I liked astrology. I'm very spiritually minded. I meditate. I'm very conscious and think about God and aware and like believe in the universe. But I didn't know anything specifically about numbers. I was just kind of always interested in them. And I started seeing this number everywhere to the point where I couldn't deny it. Like across from my apartment, the phone number to the liquor store was 555-555. The deli down the street from me, the address was 555. I was at the store and I was wearing Sada Baby socks. Shout out to Detroit. So he sent me socks from an interview and I had worn them. This was the first time. And my friend goes, yo, did you see his post today? And his post was, I'll drop a new song when I get 555 comments.
That's so random, bro. That's crazy.
And I was wearing the socks. Like it was like on the same day. And then my friend, once like my friend started noticing, he would send me stuff. He'd be like, yo, do you see this? It's like Jeremy Hecht at 555 others like this. And so I'm like, this is weird. So I started looking into the number and what it means, according to numerology and angel numbers, is trust your change, basically. All of the change and the transformation and the transitional period you're going through is leading to something greater. It's great change. And so your angels are guiding you through this time. And so, that was the calculated part of my connection to the number. And then I was out at, shout out to my friend Jordan, who's like my best friend out here. He throws events too. And one of the events, they had a tattoo vendor. And I was like, you know what? I never wanted a tattoo. I was like, you know what? Let me fuck around and get a tattoo. So I got this 555. It was my 5-year anniversary in LA. It had been 5 months since my breakup, 5 months since I moved in on my own, and I paid $55.05 for the tattoo.
I love that. I thought you were gonna say that your rent is $555. I would have been like, damn, bro.
If that was the case, I don't know what I'd be doing.
Hey, man, you would be one of the very few who is paying that little for rent, and I would have appreciated it so much.
Me and my 8 roommates.
Jeremy Hecht, everybody. Where can everybody find you, man?
You can follow me at Jeremy_Hecht, HECHT, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and I also have my first and maybe only ever comedy special dropping. It'll be probably out by the time this is out or dropping within the next couple weeks, but it's something I never thought I'd be doing. But like we said, if you find inspiration, roll with it. So I appreciate your platform, your time, and your connection, and I can't wait to see where it leads.
I appreciate you too, man. Nico Blitz Podcast, Jeremy Hecht. We are out.
That was fire.